Senator, let me put this to you. You have one of your colleagues, Senator Bilo Kero from Mandera, raising issue time and again in terms of how the national government is dealing with security as far as Mandera is concerned, that largely the people there have been made to feel as though they're not part of Kenya. Their issues are not being addressed, and yet he is part of the government as far as being a Jubilee member. Do you think the steps that have been taken so far really are inspiring confidence? You've had one of the people who are speaking there as well, still focusing on security and saying not enough, at least in as far as being seen to be done, is working.
Thank you, Sophie. I think I just want to say that I was in Mandera on Monday, and indeed we looked at how the borders are. And yes, we will agree with the CS Interior that we need a wall that can really help just the entry. Because when you go to Mandera on the border of Somalia and Kenya, it's like there's no border. The Somali side has encroached even the no man's land, and therefore they've built there. And I think what has happened that after we went into AMISOM, now you find it's like an international issue that you must deal with it within the UN. But having said that, I just want to say first, when you look at the new IG, and for me, I always tell Kenyans, the security sector in this country, really after 2007 and the post-election violence, we divided ourselves. And with the same politics we play at the political level entered into the institution of the security docket. That today, when you are serving someone, and you saw it in Parliament, when our senators went, when the security bill was going on, we had security in Parliament. Nobody cared, do I save my friend Minority Leader Mudama being beaten, because we are all divided, and in security it is divided. Now that brings the country to a very different log, and that is where every person, and for sure as politicians, Sophie, we need now to question, are we saving our country, or have we split our country completely? Because that is the only institution that is supposed to be more partial than any. That is supposed to serve anyone regardless of your name. But the moment I enter into any security sector and I say my name, I might be served or I might be looked at. So it's something, and that's why I was saying it is time as a country we talk about of our character and attitude. It will save us. But is the government doing enough to change those kind of perceptions, those kind of attitudes, that kind of... Sophie, in security, you don't say government. And that's what I'm saying. We are saying both, and that's why we are saying, are we united or not? The moment we say we are not, it starts within that split. For government, it's for Kenya to bring back security. Because when we are going for recruits, we don't go and say only the two government, as our friends are saying, this is a government of two. This is not a government of two people or two communities. It would be wrong to tell Kenyans that. But if those appointments, my question was in as far as when you say, it's you're from this tribe in as far as seeking service, when appointments in government are largely seen to still fall under those two big tribes, does that help matters even in the security? Now, that's why I always tell the elite, be honest, because these are appointments at another level, and when you look at them across, in the end, you have a chairman, you have a CEO, you have board of directors. When you say it's a community of two, bring all on the table, substantiate and say, I have a board that has two communities full. But when you bring them all and you'll find Kenyans seated on that board, really, it will be wrong for me to sit here in the morning and say, we have boards that have two communities. Chairman, but I know in the elite way, the way we look at things, and it's one way that really we must question also. When you look at, for example, the judiciary service now, we have Winnie Gushu coming in, and we have a young man from Rift Valley. But we have not asked again the rest of the board that are there. Who are they? What tribe are they? All right. Chairman, do you think the Jubilee government is largely using this card of security begins with you, as we heard the president say, we're hearing that responsibility is with everyone, to cover up for their own failures and where they're not being able to meet what it is they're supposed to do?
It is true that all of us need to be involved in security matters. So it is, the president is not wrong to say that security begins with you and I. All of us need to participate in security matters, because we need to provide intelligence to the relevant authorities. And actually, I just wanted to follow up on what Onyangolo said with regards to legislation. And we've said it a number of times, at least I've said it, that when legislations are progressive and ones who help us sort out and fix the issues of security, we support it. Even the Security Amendment Act, which was very contentious, we were largely in agreement with many sections of that law, except a few. And so even our rejection of the bill was not on the basis that the bill was wrong. We appreciated that when we passed the constitution and enacted a law, it was done in a rush, and a few things needed to be tightened up. But one thing that I think the Jubilee administration is failing to appreciate is that there was a reform process that was started for the security sector that I think needs to be completed. Let us not over-concentrate on the physical aspects of who is sitting in the office, buying equipment, doing what. Buying equipment is very important because technology is advancing. But there are reforms that were started and need to be completed. The other thing, my good friend, Senator Beatrice, has spoken to issue of ethnicizing the ethnic polarization of the security sector. And I can't agree with her more. But you see, when the highest office in the land is taking actions that depict ethnicity, then how do you expect the junior officers to behave differently? And I want to say this. You see, Senator Elachi has spoken to the issue of taking appointments in totality. I want to tell her that issues of ethnicity, to fight them, is about perception. You need to give the correct perception to people. You cannot have 40 million Kenyans sitting in a room and giving them statistics, who is here, who is where. What they see is what they construe. When you remove a Maasai for her underperformance as a CS for security, and you bring another Maasai, you remove a Kalenjin as IG and you put another one, how do you expect the junior officers in the security docket to behave differently? They know that these people are brought here to represent their tribe. So what we are talking about is the president needs to pass a message. He's the chief executive of this country. He's the CEO. He's the one we expect to show the country the path to prosperity. And whatever he does, we will always interrogate. He's accountable to us. Okay. So whether, and you cannot accuse us for interpreting his actions differently. It is him to make sure that whatever he does, that he carries along the people of Kenya.
All right. Let's shift from security matters. We'll wait to see what the president will say, if in fact he will choose to address that matter. But let's talk corruption. 3 weeks ago, issuing an executive order, directive to state corporations to furnish the office of the president with details of procurement deals sealed since they came into power. The same president that we saw talking about corrupt individuals soon after he came into office in his own office. And we're talking about now Parliament with all these allegations in the committees as well. The war on graft seems to have just completely gone on a whole new level. Is there any confidence you see, and how best can that be done, Olo, in as far as just getting Kenyans to see this is a government that's serious? When people hear powerful individuals being mentioned, yes, they'll be arraigned in court, but soon after that story kind of disappears, and it's the smaller people, quote unquote, that we actually see prosecuted.
Thank you so much, Sophie. My friend, the chairman here, seemed to believe that we don't have to improve our technology and maybe human resource is not very important. But I want to tell you that the very reason for which the government exists is to serve the people. And the government can only serve the people through human resource and through equipping the human resource with the latest advances in technology, so that because the criminals also think in terms of being ahead of the government. So when we talk about the need to combat corruption, we must look at where did this thing start. Corruption has been with us here badly, and government after government have been pledging that they are going to fight corruption very severely and seriously. And you remember, like, we put in place institutions that were intended to fight this menace of corruption. It is very easy now to say that the Jubilee government is not doing a lot to fight corruption. But we forget that the anti-corruption and ethics institution, for instance, was put in place before we came into authority. The current DPP, or Deputy Public Prosecutor, the Office of the Attorney General, all the relevant officers have been with us. So, and that is why this thing is properly titled State of the Nation and not State of the Government or State of the Jubilee Government, so that we are able to look at ourselves as a nation. There are these institutions that we created. Did we populate them with the correct human resource to fight these menaces? Look, we are saying that when Jubilee government came into power, issues of corruption have not gone down. But are they unique to us? These issues cut across both Jubilee and
there are
CORD.
those who say they appear to have been this reawakening, that they're on the rise, they're more brazen, but as you see these individuals.
Thank you so much. And that is not false or not very far from the truth. But we are saying for the first time also you have seen the government arraign senior government officers in the Anglo-Leasing, which the government of Nusumkati could not do before that. We are saying when you look at the faces behind this corruption, largely actually, you see them cutting across both Jubilee and CORD. Okay? Right now, Parliament is investigating its own committees. When you look at the faces there, you don't just see Jubilee faces alone. Mm-hmm. So we are saying that we address these issues as a state, as a nation. Do we have proper values, proper ethics, proper persons to fight the menace of corruption?
Right.
And we are saying the government as currently constituted is determined. But there are legislations, there are institutions that probably are charged with this responsibility.
Wabukala said that this should be declared a national disaster, corruption that is. Do you think the president today in addressing the nation should declare it a national disaster or crisis?
Well, whether he declares it or he doesn't, it's actually a national disaster. If it's raining outside there, we don't need the president to declare that it is raining because it is a fact.
But when the president does not appear.
Yeah, it is a national disaster, and we expect him to acknowledge that it is a national disaster and to come up with a plan of action. And I agree with Onyango Olo that it's not about the state of the Jubilee government, it's about the state of the nation. And the national mindset is that one of the mandates of government is corruption. That one of the rewards of being in power, whether it's power on the Public Accounts Committee or on any other committee of Parliament, that you are supposed to exercise that power corruptly, whether it's about alcohol law, whether it's about frisking people for lethal weapons, critical points. It's about being corrupt. And we cannot take comfort. Certainly, Mheshimiwa Onyangolo, the Jubilee government should not take comfort in the fact that it is also happening in CORD and that it has been there. The reason you are there is to lead the assault against corruption. I am not very sure whether I should feel happy that I'm seeing dry old fish in the law courts or Bambla. I'm here with the people who come from the Lake Basin where they know about the fish culture, that there's a lot of fresh fish in the waters of corruption, and people who have been named in the PSC reports and who are still sitting pretty in their offices, and they have gone and gotten all their dry fish, the one which is called Obambla, and from the Kisumu market, and they are saying this is big fish which we have caught. Yes, that is good big fish, but we also want to see fresh fish. When the president says that there are people within his own backyard, let us see something happening about that.
Yeah, because you saw the civil society talk about these 20 cases of grand corruption, giving the government an ultimatum to do something about it. As Barak is saying, do you expect the president, and do you hope that he'll give an indication that in coming days we'll actually see heads roll? Because talking tough he has for a long time. The question and concern gets to the point of where is the action?
I think today in the state of the nation, I believe, and I know, the president is going to talk about corruption. He's going to talk about the steps government is going to take on corruption. But as he do that, because I think for many years, every president who has come in has got to when you look at even the Grand Coalition time, there was the same issue. We need to also ask ourselves, because there's one thing I always say when I look at government. Sophie, you can be today appointed as a CS. I'm telling you, when you enter into your ministry, there's the second managerial level, and HR managerial, and the audit office, and the procurement team. If, as Kenyans, we don't come out and start also looking inside that, you will sit there as a CS, you will give your orders, you will stay 3 months, you haven't seen. As much as you'll want to perform, you will still have the same. So we are saying, when we are talking about corruption, let us now look at the structures within every institution, even as in Parliament. We're saying we have committees. Where we went wrong, and I know my friend Buddy will say, we went wrong when we decided, even within the mandate, we are supposed to wait for a report from the Auditor General. You have started the investigations even before you have seen the project itself. That is where we hit ourselves, we shoot ourselves, and we find ourselves now caught up. Because while you're finishing your report, now the Auditor General brings in a report, and then the reports are not similar. So then you ask yourself, so what went wrong? And then you have this competition within ourselves. The standing committees would want to do their work, but we have the two investigating committees, not just in the National Assembly, but Parliament as a whole, that is also doing investigation. So until we sit down, reflect back and say, no, let's go to our mandate, we will still have the problem. Same in government. You have a structure where we have somebody who has worked for 30 years. You have worked in immigration on only one docket. What do you deal with? Permits. As we do the police reforms, I think in the civil service, for Kenya to move, we need reforms. And we need to move. If you have worked somewhere for 30 years, move. If the government can even come up with a policy and say, let us do now a contract. If you are at this level of government, work for 5 years. If we feel you did not perform, you leave, somebody else comes in. I looked at the young people who are here, and I was asking myself, listen to them. For them, they are for Kenya. They will want to see transformation. But as we talk of the IG and say he does not have experience and everything, if that young person would have applied, let me become the police IG, will we give him or her the opportunity? So those are some of the things we need to ask ourselves.
Chairman, there are those on corruption that feel that during the Kibaki regime it had taken a lull and that now it's back with a bang. In your opinion, do you first agree with that kind of analysis? And if so, what do you think is making this corruption thrive at this particular time?
I don't think it took a lull. It's only that it was not at the same scale as probably it is being witnessed today or during the Moi regime. But corruption has been with us. I think we would be pretending to say that corruption is only seen during the era of Jubilee administration. We had a number of cases even in the previous Grand Coalition government where people were stepped down as a result of corruption. Investigations were carried out and they were never concluded. And then if I came here to tell you that corrupt elements are only in Jubilee, then I would really be lying to the nation. They are also found in court. But what we are telling Jubilee is that no one says you should only fight corruption among members of your movement. The government of Kenya is in the hands of Jubilee. If a corrupt element is found, whether in Jubilee or in court, let that person be arrested and taken to court. I've heard Nyangolo talk about the institutions that we set up, and he has rightly pointed out that EACC, DPP, all these appointments were made in the previous regime. But to say that that is what is holding Jubilee back is, to me, escapist. Because really the Constitution provides for the removal of even the commissioners. So if Jubilee administration feels that there's a commission that is hindering its a fight on corruption, then the best thing to do is to initiate the removal of those officers from the office. The EACC chair and the commissioners can easily be removed. So to me, that is not an excuse that I would buy. Secondly, there are simple steps. Actually, we made several steps forward, but we have made a number of steps backwards. After 2010 Constitution was promulgated, this country woke up to a system where if you are mentioned in corruption and you are in the public office, the first thing you do was to step aside. Right now we have heard of so many names being mentioned. A cabinet secretary is sitting in the cabinet of President Uhuru Kenyatta, having visited Integrity Center on an issue that is published as worldwide. And nothing, no one talks about it. If, for example, the issue of laptop, it has not stalled. The standard 1 pupils have not got laptop because there is no money. Money was budgeted. It is not because there are no laptop to buy. The issue is somebody stalled this flagship project of the president. The president needs to come out and tell Kenyans and ask, who is this who has stalled my campaign flagship project, and have that person removed from office. Someone is just decided to be corrupt in the procurement of the laptop project, and then you are telling us that you have a determination to fight corruption, and that person is still in the office. At least I've not heard of any officer in the Ministry of Education who was responsible for this vice having been asked to leave office. The president spoke about corruption in his office. We have not seen even a single officer from the office of the president leaving office because the president feels that officer is corrupt. So what we are saying, and I hope my friend Onyangolo here is the Secretary General of TNA. I don't know whether he will be the Secretary General of JAP State, or I don't know whether TNA. I wish you good luck, and I hope you still advise the president. If you do, I think one message that you need to take to the president is that the institutions that are fighting graft, if they are not effective, look for ways of making them effective. And by the way, it is not just EACC that can arrest and investigate matters. The government itself has organs, the CID, the intelligence system. They can do their own independent investigation. I know economic crimes there's a tendency to think that economic crimes, because the statute law puts EACC at the center of it. But the government still has machinery to investigate. I want to also mention, even the office of the deputy president has someone who has been mentioned adversely in a report which the Jubilee-dominated House Business Committee refused to prioritize until we made noise, and yesterday it was in the order paper. Okay. This so-called Hustler jet. There is an officer in the office of the president who is still in office and is adversely mentioned in that report. What we are asking the president and his deputy is that the Kenyan people are asking you for action, not talk. You can talk as much as you want. And by the way, just Sophia, allow me just to mention something that I think has been mentioned a lot of times about, for the first time, seeing people being prosecuted or taken to court on Anglo-leasing. This is not the first time. We have Murungaru in court. Murungaru was a minister on the same Anglo-leasing cases. This is not the first time. And again, these cases of Anglo-leasing were actually two. There is this case of Kamani, Deepak. There are others of Anura Pereira, and we know who are involved in which side of it. Okay. So why are the ones of the other side not being taken to court? Okay. The answer is obvious. Thank you.
So in the first, his maiden State of the Nation address, the president talked about these issues: security. He talked about it. Corruption. He did as well. You know, saying that they'd get rid of corrupt officials and bring that down. But the wage bill question, containing that, as a country, we had that national conversation as well. Where do you think we're at in as far as the wage bill is concerned?
First, Sophie, before I address you on that, I want to address an issue my colleague and chairman has said here.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. Let us get it right. And I would have excused anybody other than my friend here who was in the last parliament for saying what he has said. That if the president has a feeling that there is corruption in his government, then heads should roll, people should go to court. He was a party to those who ushered the new constitution. And under that chapter 6, they made very stringent conditions upon which people could step aside or resign. First, you must be arraigned in court, okay? And that is upon proper investigations, because there's a right to a fair trial, there's a right to, even the corrupt must be heard. So when you say whenever there's a feeling there's corruption in this ministry, people should be sacked, the government should act. No.
Suspended?
No. The government cannot.
Ombudsman is asking for the suspension of Churchill.
I'm coming there.
I would have raised a point of order.
Thank you.
Because when Wetangula stepped aside, he was never ready.
We have been trying to be very
Yes.
The situation is that we cannot act on mere feelings. Otherwise, it will extend.
Madam Chair, it's not a question of mere feelings. We have got the Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
It has tabled 3 reports this month before the National Assembly. Those reports mention some individuals very adversely. The reports have been adopted by the National Assembly. They are official state reports.
So it's not
the
a feeling.
persons who have been mentioned there, complete with supportive facts, are still sitting pretty in government. I think that we cannot call a feeling.
I'm saying. What constitution did my senior brother...
And these are people who have been appointed by the president. People whom he can dismiss, people he can distance himself from, people he can even advise, step aside, this matter to be investigated. These are not rumors.
Okay.
These are concrete state positions.
And for him to answer both, in the last government,
yes,
we had Honorable Wetangula stepped aside, Senator Wetangula. He was not arraigned in court. We had PSS in the office of the Prime Minister who stepped aside, and they were not arraigned in court. So it is not that the Constitution does not demand that you have to arraign someone in court. I refuse to accept that.
I want just to answer that.
Now answer briefly.
Briefly, you see, these people now step aside on their own volition. Because if someone says, I'm not stepping aside, he will go to that chapter 6
if they're my
and tell
appointees,
you, this chapter 6
but the president is
protects my
trying
rights.
to drive a point home and say we're serious about this. Can he not then talk to these individuals, tell them, you know what, for the sake of just as perceptions, things are working, moving, step aside.
Sophie, when you look at the judiciary today, really, as much as my brothers we are fighting here, you know very well you will want to do all that, and you will find another system called the judiciary, and they will stop you in all that, and they will even
on your tracks.
return the same person
if
to
they
work.
say,
so that is why I was saying, this issue is an issue we must deal with the 3 arms of government and ask ourselves, where did we go wrong? That even when somebody is brought to court with all the papers, I saw the other day, the lawyer comes in, defends so hard, and is given a bond, and you walk away.
Let me let you finish your
Really?
point. Okay. All right, finish on.
Anyway,
Sorry.
That makes it even more lively. The situation is that the law we gave ourselves really gave a lot of rights and protections, which the criminals or the suspects utilize to the maximum, and which puts hurdles after hurdles before the very government that is very serious and desires to curb these issues.
Okay, the wage bill.
Now, the issue of the wage bill, as we all know, the country has been belaboring over the issue of the wage bill. For a long while, people saw the government as the employer and the only place where people should be looking for employment. And so until and unless the economy is expanded to levels that unemployment is fought and seriously fought, the wage bill continues to burst. Unfortunately, this matter has been now devolved to the county government, where the county officials look at the county government as areas to employ kith and kin. And this also continues to put a strain on the development expenditure that is very, very dangerous for us as a country.
Okay.
And that is a position, so the government has been serious on, to the extent of putting a moratorium on employment within the government agencies.
All right. We have 5 minutes to go. I want you to give me your closing remarks as you touch on perhaps the good. We've dwelled a lot on what is not working. You can still mention more of what you think is significantly not working. But the World Bank has talked about the economy growing, that by 2017, 2016, we'll be looking at 7%. Barack, as you look at the state of the nation, is it really all gloom and doom? This is dead. There's nothing good working?
I think the economy is working to the extent that it is growing. That is a good thing that we should accept and acknowledge. The flip side, of course, remains that whose economy is it? As a student of history, I'm informed of societies that have had thriving economies. The economy of Santo Domingo in the 19th century thrived. It was the most sought after economy in the world, but it was a slave economy. The black people of that island, now republic that we call Haiti, never enjoyed any of the benefits. So things like figures looked at in isolation could be extremely misleading.
Okay.
I think what we need to address, because we can't run away from the question that you asked Mheshimiwa Olo, it's not the business of government to employ people. It's not the business of government to even create jobs and create employment. The business of government is to create environments that nurture economic growth, that nurture creation of jobs and employment. We need a thorough shake-up, and we need to be very bold. This is something the Jubilee government should do, Mheshimiwa Onyangolo, that with Smolen government, that even as citizens, we need to ask ourselves whether we need a parliament of 500 people and the perks that we are giving them, whether we need 47 governors, perhaps we need 10 counties, perhaps we need 50 members of parliament, and we need to engage in that kind of conversation.
All right, Senator, what's working?
I would say in 2 years. The good side is that we have seen Jubilee come into power, take over the issue of the new constitution, ensuring that we now start implementing the new constitution. Devolution is now down. I want to thank the National Assembly. They are now going to give them 283 billion, and therefore it will be wrong to say that while we thrive the economy, we will not see anything growing down to the counties, when we know a county like Mandera or Turkana will be receiving more than 11 billion this year. And we are saying, as we move on as women, we have seen the Zero Beyond campaign take care. The healthcare sector is coming up. I want to urge the county governments to ensure that the new facilities that are coming in for the domestic, they must appreciate and take responsibility of that. I want to tell Kenyans, this year, let us talk about corruption without looking at government. It's time we interrogate ourselves, all of us. Where have you ever gone to a school, decided to manipulate that process, and you think it's not corruption? Where have you ever done? There are many things Kenyans we avoid. Even when we are driving, we corrupt ourselves on the same roads, and that's why we find ourselves in the grid we are in. It's corruption. Let us not be so fast as we are. Slow down, and we will see things work. And let us be honest to ourselves. We will reflect. Lastly, for Parliament, we have started. It's an opportunity. We must look into it. And as we move out of it, we will move out, and Kenyans will appreciate the Parliament as an institution.
Chairman, is there anything you see working at the state of the nation, and also your thoughts on the wage bill?
To be fair to Jubilee administration, first, she's spoken about devolution, even though we would have wanted more resources to be devolved, but I think some effort is being made every year to increase the resources with the support of Parliament, which is dominated by Jubilee. So to that extent, I would appreciate that something is being done on devolution, because actually immediately after election, the most important thing for Kenyan was devolution. Secondly, I think they have made some steps in terms of free maternal health care, although there is need to give more resources to those health facilities which are offering the free maternal health care in terms of cash transfer to help them run their services. The other thing that I think is also positive is that they have picked up on the infrastructure development of the previous administration, and they are moving forward with it. The SGR, the intention to have more kilometers of road being tarmacked, I think that is progressive, and that needs to be encouraged. But the economic growth, I would agree with Barack Muluka that really the reason why South Korea and North Korea are just separated by a boundary, yet their economic status is completely different, is because one side, the South, the North practices what one would call exclusive, extractive economic kind of style of management. Yet the other one is inclusive. You need an inclusivity in terms of economic management for a country to progress. So it is not just the numbers. You need to have a deliberate effort to ensure that everybody is involved, and the trickle-down effect is manifest. So as I conclude, I think the Jubilee administration, and I want to ask my colleagues here, when we criticize the Jubilee administration, is not that we don't want you. Yes, we are in competition, but what we are saying is we live in this country and we want things to be done differently and better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, what is working?
Thank you so much, Sophie. When you see a chairman of a leading opposition party make such remarks, it leaves you with one position, that the Jubilee government is delivering on its mandate.
Okay.
The only way to fix this economy is to fix the infrastructure and to fight corruption very severely. You have seen the strides we have made in the energy sector, and we continue to make. When power comes down, basically it trickles down to everybody. And that is a very core area of the Jubilee government. The infrastructure, the LAPSET, the SGR, we are committed to them, and they're now ongoing. Even matters of LAPSET, we are telling our children, just bear with us. We want to roll it out and roll it more seriously. We are committed to taking this country to the next level. We are committed to honoring the pledges we made to the people of Kenya. And even as we face these are challenges that whichever government comes into power, even 100 years from today, must withstand or must go through its own unique challenges. We are up to the task, and we are moving. Even on these indices of corruption, just watch this space. We are going to deal.
And we will be indeed watching that space. That's why we'll end it. Onyango Law, TNA Secretary General, John Badi, Chairman ODM, Beatrice Elachi, Majority Whip, Senate, Barack Muluka, political commentator. Always good to also end it with those positive thoughts of what is working, because sometimes I think we can dwell so much, which is important to hold the government to account, but also not forget that it really is not a desperate case in as much as to say it's dead and gone and there's no hope. There is always a glimmer of hope, and we thank you for joining us this morning on State of the Nation. Even as we wait to hear what the president will have to say later on in his State of the Nation address, addressing the country in a parliament, both houses of parliament will be sitting today, this afternoon, and we'll be live for that. So you definitely want to catch that address right here on KTN at around 3 p.m. We are glad you're watching, and do stay with us. We take a short break. It is Thursday, and we're all about also here on Morning Express, not just the national issues, but your health and you keeping healthy and fit. So Fitness Thursday is coming up. You're working out, grab your gear and join us shortly, because we'll be sweating it out in just a few minutes.